I remember the first time I played The Last of Us. I had heard so many people talking about the game on the internet and in person, and I kind of was late to the party because even though at the time I was like a massive Walking Dead fan, I was a big fan of that show and the comic book, so it seemed like a game like The Last of Us would be up my alley. I was just like, ugh, like another zombie game. Like they're usually like these terrible, goofy, no good games with like terrible stories and bad acting, and they're usually just silliness. So I wasn't very interested. But needless to say, when I put it in and I began to play, especially everyone knows that opening 15 minutes, man, I realized that this is an experience, and I got sucked into this story in a way that I don't think up to that point I have been sucked into outside of Ocarina of Time, where you just like couldn't stop. You were in this world and you were in this story and you just had to see what happened next. And so now there's rumors of Naughty Dog doing a remake. They already did a remaster where they updated the graphics a little bit for the PS4, but there's a rumor that they're just going to completely remake The Last of Us. And a lot of us fans of The Last of Us are like, no, please don't touch it. It's like, it is pure, it is holy the way it is. You can't touch it. But the thing is that they're just gonna go through with it, and so there's a lot of fans I see who are nervous and upset, saying that Naughty Dog shouldn't even try to do this. It's a waste of time. They should just leave it alone. It doesn't need a remake. But the thing is that the more I think about it, the more I think that we actually need a Last of Us remake. Not because there's anything wrong with the first game, and of course because that's what we experienced. We're purists and we don't want it to change, but because I think it's actually needed for several reasons. Man, the first one is, like, let's be honest. This game be old. It came out in 2013, and if that doesn't feel like a long time to think about, that's almost like a decade ago. And I know that even when you say that, you're like, okay, well, that's still not that long ago, but think about how far technology, especially gaming technology, has come since the PS3, Xbox 360 era. Like, the polish on games is at a level that is so high that honestly, when I invited my parents over for Christmas and I was playing my PS4, their minds were blown that it wasn't real. And I think that no scene proves that maybe this thing actually needs a bigger overhaul than just like a 1080p upgrade is this scene with Joel. Look at this.
I saw him this morning.
Listen to me. There is something bad going on. And we have got to get out of here. Do you understand me?
Yeah.
Tell me, come on. Come on.
Yikes. Even in 2012, I remember that I thought, oof, that does not look good. And today it looks even worse. It just doesn't look right. Like it kind of just takes you out of the experience, especially when you can compare this with The Last of Us 2. So before The Last of Us 2, it was like, okay, yeah, there's some rough edges, but it usually looks good. But when you put these things side by side and you look at the graphical differences, it's not even a contest which one is better, and not even just like better, like significantly better. People who don't even like The Last of Us 2 can admit that like the graphics and the way you move and how the world reacts to you is like next level. And so because this game is kind of old, I think it actually needs an update. But then it's not even just graphics, because who cares about graphics? It's also gameplay. Like, I love The Last of Us. Do not get me wrong. Absolutely love it. I play it constantly. But for many, and I would disagree with them, but for many, this gameplay feels old and clunky, and I can understand why. It is like Ocarina of Time, where that game holds a special place in my heart, but if I give it to a new gamer who's been playing the most up-to-date games, and they go to it, they're like, man, it just feels clunky, because of the time it was in. It was just like, yeah, it's a little rough around the edges because we were still figuring things out, and things have moved along, and in the same way, The Last of Us is kind of like that, where it definitely shows its age, that it is a PS3, Xbox 360 game. For example, let's just compare some basic things from the first one to the second one. Like, jumping is not something you can do. Crawling, the way you move is clunky. The AI is smart, but not very smart. Like, it's not the bottom of the barrel, but they definitely aren't like geniuses. And in The Last of Us 2, they included all these things, and it just made you feel feel like that world was more real than going back to the first one does, especially if you're someone who's never played the first one. You don't have that nostalgia for it, and then you go to it, you're like, oh, this does not feel good to play. And that's actually one of the biggest complaints that I've heard from people who've tried to get into it. So like, it feels clunky, it feels hard to play. And as someone who's played it a ton, I don't get it, but I know that for someone who hasn't had that playthrough and that nostalgia with it when it came out, or closer to when it came out, you do feel its age and its gameplay. This is actually the last reason that I think we need a Last of Us remake, and I think it's actually the biggest one. It's the next generation and a new generation. Meaning, like, let's face it, Naughty Dog wants to release an updated version of The Last of Us 2 with those enhanced graphics so they can make our $80 off of us. But the thing is that to most gamers, it's going to be like, wow, like, what's the point? I can kind of download the second one, and sure, it doesn't have ray tracing, but it's pretty decent on the PS5. But a way to actually make it feel worth people's money is to bundle it with a remaster, like a complete remake of the first one. And I think there's a couple reasons why they actually want to do this outside of making money. I think, one, even if we as classic fans feel upset because we're scared they're going to screw it up, I doubt Naughty Dog is going to screw it up. I mean, I know for those of you who didn't like The Last of Us 2, you're sitting around and you're like, they already did screw it up. But we just don't agree on The Last of Us 2, I guess, because I think that game is really good and a great continuation, so I guess we just don't agree. But I think that they really love this franchise, and they're not going to screw up the gold they had in the first game. They're just going to do things to make it improved. And so I think it'll not only make fans happy to return to the game, but I actually think it'll encourage a new generation to pick it up for the first time, which is super important to Naughty Dog, especially because they want a new generation to jump into this, and they want to come out with a third one. And the hard thing about coming out with a third one in a series is that this first game came out so long ago that if you want to look back to when it first came out, it's not just last generation, it's actually 2 generations ago. It's on the PlayStation 3. It was remastered for the PS4, but let's not forget that if you want to play the first one in its original state, you have to go all the way back to the PlayStation 3. So it's just not accessible. And so for a new person to pick it up, they see the third one's coming out, they want to catch up on the story. There's no better way than to release a bundle of the two together with updated graphics that feel similar, that look similar, and that can give you a taste of what the third one is going to be like in a better way. But then there's also this huge thing, HBO. And as much as we as gamers like to think that everybody and their dog knows about The Last of Us, they don't. And like it or not, this show on HBO is going to get a ton of new fans interested in the franchise. And so as those new fans are coming in and they're hearing about this game and they're experiencing this story for the first time on TV, a lot of them are going to want to dive into the original and actually like experience the game. And what better way for them to do that than to give them that fresh experience that looks and feels consistent between game to game, and that also prepares them for the third one that's going to be coming out. Because let's face it, this game came out in 2013, and even though it feels fresh to a lot of us, to the average person out there who hasn't played it yet, it does not feel fresh. The graphics, as much as they look amazing for a PS3 and early PS4 game, are dated, especially when you compare them with the second one. And not only that, the gameplay does feel old and clunky. Even me, a hardcore fan of the first game, I can admit that the gameplay is of its generation and it doesn't really meet the standards we're used to, or even that the second one set. So it makes sense to update it for the next generation, for a new generation who can be able to experience the story for the first time. And who doesn't want to do that? Who doesn't want people to pick up this game for the first time and have their heart broken again and again like we did back in 2013? So that's why I personally think we actually need a Last of Us remake. But the more important question is, what do you think? And I know that I can give out my reasons and people aren't going to agree. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with some of the reasoning? Does it make sense? Or do you think that I'm absolutely crazy and I make absolutely no sense at all? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you like this video, hey, I'm a new channel. I'm going to be talking about games and video games and different kinds of things. So if you like this video, I want to encourage you, please like and subscribe. It would mean the world to me. Starting out, I would absolutely just be honored if you could hop on and join this journey with me. And we'll see you guys next time.